Flashing warning signs for the U.S. economy. Consumer sentiment hitting an all-time low amid growing concerns about inflation and Trump's war with Iran, which means Americans are more down on the economy than at any other time since 1952. That's a long time ago. And it comes as Kevin Warsh, who Trump picked as the new Federal Reserve chairman in the hopes that Warsh would lower interest rates, was just sworn in. Now, Trump claiming today that Warsh will be free from any pressure from Trump in the job.
I want Kevin to be totally independent. I want him to be independent and just do a great job.
Now, Kevin Warsh is well aware of the reality, which is that is hard to believe, because you will remember what Trump routinely said about the former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell. That's Warsh's predecessor. Trump said pretty nasty things about him when Powell refused to do Trump's bidding.
We have a terrible chairman right now.
We have a lousy Fed chair. He's a fool. He's a stupid man. He's incompetent.
I'm sure Kevin Warsh is ready for that if he does what the markets think he's going to need to do, which is the opposite of what Trump wants. Einstein and Ives, Peter Tuchman and Dan Ives are back here with me. Okay, so let's just start here, Peter, with this consumer sentiment. And I always, there's consumer sentiment and there's consumer confidence. There's two different numbers. They come out a couple weeks apart. They are both saying horrific things. Today, it's the lowest level since 1952. A couple weeks ago, the other measure was the lowest level in an even longer period of time. It's incredible, okay? And we were just talking about it. We'll just get our whiteboard out of the way right away. Let's get it out right away. People's perception of their personal finances fell 13%. It's an unlucky number. Down 13% in 1 month. That number really stands out.
Is it this month or just this past month?
This past month, yeah.
Okay, look, that is after we've been in the conflict now for what 3 months?
84 days.
Okay.
Yep. So just about, exactly,
and think about it, we've sustained a price of a barrel of oil above $100 for way too long. That has got to be the biggest inflationary component of all.
Yeah.
And think about it, and I'm sure not only people who are in the stock market, but your everyday person who's living paycheck to paycheck, or anybody who has a blue collar job, is noticing that everything related to gas and or oil is really expensive, and it's whether they're paying
K-shaped.
Right. Explain the K-shape, because that's
it's everything, the K-shape, where basically on the high end, those, whether it's the market exposed to tech and everything we see going on in Silicon Valley.
The market just keeps going up and up and up, even as American consumer situation is going down, right? So the K, that's the K.
Yeah, and a lot of that is AI and tech driven. And then, as Peter was talking about, on the low end, in terms of just the regular economy, you continue to see it soft, and you see some of the Walmart numbers and others, and it speaks to what we're going through right now in terms of this unevenness.
There's certain times when the market goes in concert with the economy, and then there's some times where they kind of bifurcate, right? And that's at a high, in my opinion, we're at that point now in such a huge way.
All right, and there's only so long that can continue. Something's got to give. The question is what? We don't know.
Right.
But when you have Kevin Warsh coming in, okay, I think the last person to come in such a bizarre moment was probably Alan Greenspan.
Yes.
Okay, and Kevin Warsh comes in. Trump wants rates to go down, and Kevin Warsh maybe a few months ago would have been possibly on board with that. That was one of the reasons Trump wanted to pick him. But now you got a situation where you have an inflation problem, even as you have a growth problem. And to solve that, the market's now saying, hey, guess what, Kevin Warsh? You're going to have to raise rates even as people are in pain.
Well, that's what the market's saying. And the reality is like a dual mandate when you think about growth and then, of course, lowering inflation. Look, inflation's creeping up. And as we've talked about relative to oil and what we're seeing from PPI to CPI, and Warsh is going to come in and basically has to he's going to sort of clear the decks and say, okay, we're ultimately going to have an economy that is very focused in terms of making sure inflation doesn't get worse. And the reality is that's probably a hike that's now factored into the rest of this year.
Well, because we haven't even really seen inflation yet.
Well, it's far. We're not going to feel it. We're going to feel this way down the road. The thing that Dan sort of shared with me a couple of weeks ago was that for every $10 increase in the price of a barrel of oil is equivalent to 1% GDP. So we went from a $65 barrel of oil before the conflict, right, and a fairly 3.5%, 4% GDP, and we're now at $105 on a sustained level.
Yeah.
And so that means that the GDP is probably down to flat. And if you can't lower interest rates with a low growth, slow growth environment or landscape, right?
All right, more bad news for President Trump when it comes to how Americans are feeling about the economy. According to the University of Michigan survey, consumer sentiment has dropped 3 straight months to the lowest level in the survey's 50-year history. That's lower than during the COVID pandemic and lower than the Great Recession. A new Fox News poll found more than half of registered voters think they were better off financially 2 years ago than they are right now. But still, President Trump insists the economy is doing better than ever. Here he is.
You were a dead country, and today you're the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true, we're the hottest country. 68 days we hit all-time record highs, and since the election, adding $9 trillion in value to your savings and retirement accounts, 401ks. Your 401ks, does anybody have a 401k? Well, your people are going to vote for me then. There's no way. Will anybody with a 401k vote against Trump? Thank you.
Okay, so a little data there to give you some context. How many Americans have a 401k? Of 70 million Americans, 43% of the working population, 60% of Americans have some sort of retirement savings plan. All of this is coming, I think, too important to know when this Fox News poll shows that 71% of registered voters disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy. Joe, can the president outrun these numbers as we get closer to the midterms?
Look, I mean, consumer sentiment is an anxiety-based metrics, not necessarily based in any reality or data. I mean, if you look at some of the retailer stocks, consumer cyclicals, auto manufacturers, all those stocks are doing pretty well. 401ks are doing well, exactly what President Trump said.
Go ahead.
The issue is that we have two things driving anxiety. We are in the middle of a war, right? That is going to push anxiety down. We have mortgage rates high, we got gas prices high. The gas rates we've seen will come down, the price of oil will come down as soon as whatever happens in Iran, whatever ending to this conflict happens. We saw the volatility work out itself when we perceived that it might be over, and I think that'll happen again. On the interest rates and the mortgage rates were below 1% in 2022. They went up to over 5% by the end of 2023. I mean, they haven't come down since Joe Biden's administration caused that inflation and took 1/5 of Americans' purchase power away. The rates aren't going to come down as fast as they've gone up, in that 1 year cycle, but they've come down every single year, past 2 years, since 2024. I mean, that's pretty good. It's not where I think we need to be. But I think the president the president was the one advocating for the replacement of Jerome Powell based on that fact. People pushed back on him, but he was the one saying, no, we got to get a change at the Fed to get the rates down lower.
Isaiah wants to jump in. I can see it.
I mean, you know what's not going well? People's personal finances. Gas is $5. Trump promised he was going to cut our energy bills in half. They're up 13%. Healthcare premiums are up 26%. I mean, they can just look around and see the way things are. Inflation's the highest level since the pandemic. So you want to know why consumer sentiment is where it is? The economy sucks. I mean, just point blank, period. And Joe, the point is that this is why the Republican Party is losing elections all across this country. Because people see their bank accounts. They understand their wallets. And no matter what amount of Trump bragging about the golden age that he does, they still understand what it's doing to their wallet.
This is the exact Joe Biden playbook. I just think we should just be very, very consistent.
In
2024, we had 48 all-time market highs. Joe Biden mentioned almost every single one of them, even though inflation was also at 3.5%, even though his approval rating was also around 35%. And so Democrats at the time were saying rah rah the stock market, but now they're attacking Trump for doing the same thing.
Lost.
It's just a very, very
so wake
typical.
up.
Totally.
And inflation was
That's
down
the
9%.
playbook.
You know what Joe Biden didn't do? He didn't start a war with Iran with no justification,
yes,
no
and
he also didn't go put tariffs on everything as well.
Yes, and so what we have here tonight, as we sit here, situation where it looks very likely that we're about to restart bombing of Iran. Okay. And there are a lot of reports out there that this is about to happen. And what that means is that all of the problems, not just with the U.S. economy, but with the economy of every country in the world, are about to get worse. And it means that the Iran war is going to go much longer than otherwise anticipated. And that is a disaster, not just for Americans, but for all people. And then if you think about the knock-on effects on energy and then manufacturing and then rates will continue to go up and then inflation, it's a calamity for the world economy.
Josh, I bet you
with
if we
no
ran,
strategy
I
whatever.
bet you if we ran the
And
clip
that
of
is
you
the most
in February, you'd have
irresponsible
been
and
saying the same thing. I
handling
guarantee you there's a clip in this building somewhere you saying the same
February
thing.
when?
when the
Some
war
clip of
started
you saying
in
it's about to
February
end,
of
it's
this
about
year.
to end, it's about to end, and I keep saying it's not about to end. It's
Right
not
now
about
we
to
have
end.
the stock
And I
market
keep being
hitting a
right, you keep
higher
being
point than
wrong.
it was in February.
And at some point you're going to have to admit that we're in this quagmire
Okay.
because if you say it's going to end every single day and then it never ends, it's
I'll
not
be right.
ending.
I'll be right one of those days.
Yeah, except
hopefully
what kind
we're
of world
still
will
on
be
the
left
earth while
by
But
the
here's
time
the
that
question.
happens?
You mentioned
And-
energy prices, and obviously there's a lot of components to the Iran war. But you think about gas prices, and that's something that most Americans see every
day.
single day.
Yeah, I
And,
think
and it increases prices for farmers who use gas.
It has collateral
manufacturers.
ripple
go ahead,
effects.
Ashley.
I think
Car sales are down.
I hear your point. Yes, and when Democrats were running in 2024, voters were saying they were not feeling economically secure, and Democrats looked at the numbers. The lesson is Democrats lost, and so the takeaway is listen to the constituents.
Yes, I agree.
They actually understand what they are living every day, and the challenge is will leaders lead? I understand Trump didn't run. He was going to start a war. He thought that was the right thing to do. I think we all at this table agree Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But he also represents the people living in this country. And I think if you were to ask the people living in this country whether or not they want him to figure out the best way not to strike right now, to end this war and bring gas prices down, they would say make that your number one priority. And as a leader, it seems like he is ignoring the people who voted for him, the people who didn't vote for him, and the people that are in the middle that had one time and one time not. He's ignoring them. And that is a problem of leadership for the country.
I think you're right about one thing. I think you're right that, sometimes we all fall into this void where we think the bad things only affect our opponents. Like, I think it's foolish for the Republicans to pretend like high gas prices are not going to affect them in the midterm. I think we definitely need to take
Money
a
is
more
green,
serious,
not red or blue.
Look at that.
All right. It's okay. Yeah. No, I think there's much more to come as we see what happens next.